What's going on, all you beautiful net runners? This is the first round of the regional tournament based out of Toronto at Legends Warehouse in Vaughan. It was a tournament that had 34 players, a lot of interesting Valencia decks, and exciting Engineering the Future tech. So we're going to start off with round one here, game one of myself playing Engineering the Future versus a Hayley Kaplan deck. So off the top, I take a mandatory draw. I believe it's a install. Yep, it's an install in a remote to gain me a credit off of my ETF ability. So that's my first click. Second click is to draw, and my last click is to install in the remote, leaving both centrals wide open for Hayley. So Hayley's first click is a run on R&D, which sees, I believe, an Eli that was. And second click looks like a run on HQ. Rolls her die and sees a Biotic out of hand. Third click to check the remote. And just taking a second here to figure out if I want to res it. I always hate spending so much money early. If I'm not mistaken, it's a Turing. So that's 4 credits that I had to spend right off the bat. And there it is there, which forces Hayley to bounce and drops me down to 2 credits at the beginning of my turn. And she then installs a Ghost Runner. So drawing that Eli, installing a card over HQ and gaining credit for ETF for first click. And second and third click to take money, getting me back up to 5 total. She runs R&D and sees an NAPD and steals it. That really doesn't bother me. I like that play there. I like when the runner sees an early NAPD and has to spend money to take it. So that drops her credit pool to 0. Runs R&D again and sees a beautiful alt art Adonis campaign. And ends her turn by taking two credits. So I res the Adonis, losing me 1 credit for the turn. And basically getting my economy going here. It kind of sucks because I didn't see any breaker bays early on in the game. So that's another install and a credit for ETF. So that's 1 click down. Second click is to install in a separate remote. And third was a credit, sorry about that. And so first click is to install Katie, second click is to tap Katie Jones. A run on R&D reveals an Eve campaign. And last click is to draw. At the end of her turn, I res a second Adonis. Again, getting that economy going early. It's always good to have a strong credit base early in the game, obviously to do more things. And so that's an install of R&D finally. I hate having the runner see what I'm going to draw before I can. And a separate install, creating a 4th remote server. Now this isn't a deck that's meant to be played so far horizontally. It's just the way it ended up going. So I believe that was click 1 to tap Katie Jones again. Click 2 to draw. And more money. Foregoing the run. At the end of a turn, I res the Eve campaign. Again, it sucks having to res Eve without breaker bay out. Rather than getting a free Eve res, I had to pay the $5 for it. But at this point, it seems like a good idea because I'm ahead on econ. I'm not really fighting for money too much. I know I'm going to get money back from Adonis campaigns. And it just gives the runner more things to think about. She's not going to want to run that and pay 5 for the Eve. another 3 for the Adonis is already out, and potentially another 3 for the Adonis in the remote. So it's just putting more pressure as I install into the Adonis remote an upgrade, or the Turing remote, since our 2 Adonis is out. Install another upgrade and draw a card for my 3rd click. And so now the pressure's kind of on here. So click 1 to tap Katie Jones. Click 2, running R&D, hitting an Enigma and eating away her 3rd click, and her last click she decides just to take a manual credit. I res another Eve campaign manually without Breaker Bay for the same reasons as I did the first Eve campaign. So I know I'm ahead. I might as well get them both up and let those Eves drip away as I lose 1 Adonis, opening up my remote for a potential scoring server. Installing an enhanced login protocol. So the first run made not by card ability also requires a 2nd click. Installing into the remote behind Turing. So now she can't run Turing and click by it on her 1st click. That's the point of the enhanced login protocol. For those who know Turing, you have the option of spending 3 clicks to bypass it. And because obviously she's using 2 clicks on her 1st run, unless it was with a card ability, she's now unable to do that. So she definitely needs to find a breaker that can get through Turing, which is a code gate. So click 1 was for money, 2 daily casts into a Hayley install of, what is that, Armitage code busting. Gotta love Hayley's ability, man. It's so good, as we've discussed in previous videos. And then takes a manual credit. So here I'm gaining 7 credits off of my assets that are installed, making it very easy to finish advancing that agenda, should it be an agenda and not a trap. And so that's a click 1 and 2 to double advance and score out the Vitruvius, not opting to over advance it to give me a free opportunity to take something back from my trash. Just decided to score it out and install another card in that remote, immediately gaining me a credit. So click 1 to install self-modifying code. And currently she's hurting for money. She has a lot on Katie, but because of the clicks and because of enhanced login protocol, it's kind of messing up the flow there. So she takes money off of Armitage and hands the turn back. And that's a triple advance and score of a 2nd Vitruvius. So now it is 4-2 for the court. And so this is where things get a little bit interesting for the runner. She isn't too far behind in terms of points. However, for board state, I do have a pretty significant credit lead. She's not going to want to spend the 10 credits to get rid of the Eve campaign, so that's something to consider as well. Not to mention having enhanced login protocol out that makes running all the more difficult for her in terms of managing her clicks. So she runs at HQ for 2 clicks and bumps into an Eli. Still has the option of popping self-modifying, but chooses not to. Bounces off of Eli and taps Katie Jones again. It's an install on the remote, getting credit for ETF's ability on click 1. Click 2 to draw. Praying for ice. And the final click just to advance the newly installed card in the remote server. Before passing the turn back. So immediately she takes the money off of Katie Jones, knowing that this is potentially a game-winning board state for me. So she has to do something about that, has to get into that remote server and check what it is. Being at 4 points and having 1 advancement token on it means that it is possible to run a biotic labor and advance 4 times to score a 3-pointer. So she runs at the remote, triggering me to have to res Caprice Nice and everybody's favorite side game. And so to get through the turn, she's forced to pop the self-modifying cloak, installs Cloak, and using Hayley's ability is now able to install Refractor in the same action, which is unbelievable. Always scary to see that on the other side of the table. So use the Refractor to break through Turing and engage the side game. Like I said, it's everybody's favorite. Me personally, I'm terrible at side games, as you'll probably see throughout this tournament. But recently switched to using dice to decide whether or not I'm going to bet 1, 2, or 0. And that seems to make it a lot easier. I lose the side game here, which sucks. However, there is still an Ash in the server. Res that for $2. Ash starts at trace 4. If the runner is unable to beat the trace, the only card that they can access in the server is Ash, with a trash cost of 3. So whatever I trace here needs to be more than she can afford, or else she is going to access everything in that server, including the face down card with the advancement token on it. Because I was the one that played this game, this is a pretty frustrating moment for me, knowing how much money I had, knowing that I had the biotic in hand and I needed 8 credits to win next turn. I really didn't want to have to spend the money on Ash, so I was hoping to win that side game there. It was a very, very important side game to win, and I ended up giving it up. I took a while with this decision, and kind of had tunnel vision on her ID, which I tend to do when my opponent puts their credits on their ID. I look at that and I don't look at the rest of the table. So I ended up making it a trace of 16, if I'm not mistaken, because she only had 15 credits. However, if you remember from earlier in the game, there is still a Ghost Runner on the table with 3 credits readily available on it. So she's deciding right now if she's going to beat the trace with those credits. And so she goes for it, 15 credits and 1 credit from Ghost Runner for a total of 16 to match, meaning she has beaten the trace. Chooses not to access, or to trash Ash, sorry. However, spends one more Ghost Runner token to trash Caprice out of the server and access the face down advanced card. Pry-Rec, giving her a total of 5 points to my 4. And huge momentum swing right there. Could have been totally different had the side game been won, ending the run, forcing her to come back in, play the side game again, and then having to deal with Ash, which would have still been face down at that point. But I was so focused on having the 8 credits to win the very next turn that I didn't consider anything else on the table at the time. Even after having scanned the table multiple times, still managed to mess that up. So it's an install in the Turing remote, gaining a credit for ETF, rezzing Jackson Howard and clicking Jackson Howard to draw 2 cards, and last click ice over R&D. So she gains money off of daily cast. ELP is gone. We had forgotten to get rid of it. However, I remembered right as her turn began, before she made any runs, and let her know. So that didn't affect anything there. Just one of those things that you tend to forget. And so she goes click 1, runs at HQ, and clicks by, hits the NAPD that's been in my hand the entire game. I was kind of agenda flooded. Obviously had more than enough money to pay for it, and takes the game 7-4.